I know I've talked about the virtues before. In yesterday's video, I focused on humility, which is the cure for the biggest of all the vices. And I like that word cure because when we think about the fact that a virtue cures a vice, so many people I know are seen as virtuous, and so they don't really see their vices. So I said, well, go read some of the vices and you'll see. And then for some of us, we see our vices and we know, well, what's the opposite? What virtue do I need to cultivate? So for some of us that are seeking these higher levels of closeness to God, we may need to look at both to figure out which one best represents me. And so of the virtues, and there are many, but we have the 7 deadly sins and the 7 virtues that oppose them, but there are 4 cardinal virtues. And under these 4 cardinals, the word cardo in Latin means hinge. So all the other virtues hinge on these 4, which are justice, prudence, patience, and temperance. And one of them, the one that confused me the most was justice, because I couldn't really wrap my head around it as I should have. So I found this great writing, and it basically helped me understand. So I'm going to read a first couple sentences, but basically, justice is a moral virtue that consists in the constant and firm will to give their due to God and neighbor. Give their due, right? So what do you deserve? You deserve good, bad, punishment, reward. Justice towards God is called the virtue of religion or piety, right? So he made us and we need to be just towards him. He loves us. He gave us everything. So what can we give him back? Everything. We need to try. So it's a really good way of thinking of it. But in terms of humans, um, I wasn't sure why it was. I mean, I think I'm just towards everyone. But do you, for instance, spoil your baby child and not your oldest? Or do you treat this cousin better than you treat that one? Do you slip this one a couple extra bucks and, whatever. Sometimes they need it, but that's an easy way. But what about others? Do you treat the hobo on the streets with the same respect that you treat someone who would be, a politician or someone very well dressed? Let's just go that, not even a politician, someone with a suit and tie on versus someone who's in filthy rags. So when I read more about it, it says justice gives to each of us what is due, or our just deserts, what's right. And so it sounds like a logical, like a mathematical element of justice, and it kind of is. But here's a really big part that I've started when I read this particular interpretation, helped me understand. So it says the aspect, this logical and almost mathematical aspect of justice, focusing on equality and rights for individuals, is balanced and complemented by a more intuitive and holistic aspect, which aims at harmony and right relationships. So one is seeking justice, right? And one is seeking harmony. Well, I also teach the Myers-Briggs personality classes, and it's a personality thing. So it's like, are you introvert? Are you extrovert? Where are you? Are you both? Where on this continuum are you? And so you've got the E versus the I. You've got the sensing versus intuition, which is how you take in information. Some of us like to take it through our senses. Some like to take it through intuition. What's our outer world orientation? Judging or our perception? Do we basically like closed-ended or open-ended? There is only one of those dichotomies that's broken down by gender, though. And it's so funny. It's the thinking versus feeling. 66% of women choose the feeling function. They prefer to make decisions based on the people and the relationships first and the bottom line second. And 66% of men prefer the thinking function. They like the bottom line and then the relationship. Well, as a feeler, I was always like, well, that's men are too harsh. And we tend to start looking through our own lens. Men think, well, you women are too soft. When I started really focusing on this, because on this justice as a virtue, what I realized is what God was trying to do. Because while 2 extroverts can be married, or 2 introverts, or 2 sensors, or 2 intuitives, you can be totally alike. Nearly 100% of the time, nearly, not always. If you marry a thinker, you're a feeler. And if you are the 33% men that's a feeler, you tend to be attracted to the 33% of women that are thinkers. Why did God do this? This isn't something that people are consciously choosing, but we are attracted to that which complements our own deficits. So if I'm always about harmony, especially in the first dating years when everything's still soft, you see the person who's like, no, let's be firmer about this. Let's be bottom line. And, Christine, we've got to be fair. And then maybe that person's listening to me going, that is fair, but we've got to also be circumstantial. Look what happened in this case. That is how God is. And when you look at justice, the one of the four big ones, one of the four cardinal virtues, everything hinges on it. It starts to make more sense because it says here, typically men are especially sensitive to the equality and rights for individual aspect of justice. And typically women are more sensitive to the harmony and right relationships aspect of justice. Where do you fall? Which side of that are you strong in? And which side do you need to strengthen? Because if you're a woman or if you're a feeler, you do have the tendency to think, oh, you guys are too hard. You guys are too callous. And some may be, but you may be too soft. You may be seeking so harmony that you don't have enough guts to stand up and face the conflict that comes with saying, no, that's not right. And if you're the one in terms of justice who's seeking more of the, as we said, the mathematical fairness and equality aspect, are you focusing on the humanity? Are you focusing on the right relationships? Are you missing the harmony? And you may think those people are too weak, but you may be too callous. God is perfect. This was the best write-up I ever saw helping me understand this virtue of justice. So the paradox of justice is someone who's not fair, someone who's always kind of soft with this person or soft with that one or harsher on this one than this one. Or someone who is unjust is someone who's only bottom line and doesn't think about the human element. Look at what Jesus did. There are times he straight up said, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, here's the commandments. He focused on that aspect. But then so many times, and I think possibly because it was so litigious back in those days, just like kind of is today, he brought in more of the opposite side, going, no, he didn't stone the prostitute. He said, where are your, what was the word he used? I can't remember. The people who are judging you. Why am I forgetting this? No one's picked up a stone. They all walked away. So Jesus exhibited the second half. He exhibited more of the merciful side of justice, the human side. But don't get arrogant and think that's the only side he showed. So which side do you need to strengthen? Because we are arrogant if we think that our way, only half of this virtue of justice is valid, the soft side or the harsh side, the just side versus the harmonious side. You need both. And you need to find how to walk that perfect balance. Do you treat the poor man the same way you treat the rich man? I'm going to read what's on this notes that I took. Complete justice requires both that I just told you. Justice transforms power, and justice is transformed by love. Power is meant to serve justice. If you're a judge, if you're a lawyer, if you're a boss at a workplace and you have the power, if you're a guard, a prison guard, and you have the power, you're there to not lord that over someone. You are there to serve the other one with the power you have through justice. Power is meant to serve justice. Might should serve right. If you have the might, you need to be on your knees to what is right and good, and not what you have the power to do. Justice is meant to serve love. We are born first knowing power and weakness, just like animals. And as children, we learn a sense of justice from our conscience, from our parents, from our teachers. And as adults, we realize that justice, even though it's necessary, is not enough. It's just not enough. Our only hope is love and mercy and forgiveness from God and from each other, and we need to find that balance. How are you in this virtue? I already admitted it was tough for me to understand, but I do try to seek to be both bottom line and merciful. It's a tough balance. Whenever you struggle, ask the Holy Spirit, what do I do? What do I do? I want to punish this child who just disrespected me, but I also know that his personality is one that he beats up on himself too much. So if I beat up on him too much, it might have the opposite effect. Lord, I need your help. That's a good virtue. Remember, the definition of virtue is a disposition to do the good and to avoid evil. How are you succeeding? I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. You can find me here. Go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. Also, like me on this page, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. So again, thanks for watching Breakfast with Bacon. And remember always to live your life sunny side up.